At night, I sat on the couch, calling Cillian Witt. He sounded tired. Josie, I just got back from a gathering. Now I'm getting ready to sleep. I asked him, don't you have something to tell me? What thing? Cillian asked back. Various thoughts swirled in my mind, but what I blurted out was, Cillian, since you've given me a diamond ring, shouldn't the next step be proposing to me? Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. It was just a probing question, but Cillian remained silent for a long time. After a while, his voice came through the phone. Josie Pugh, I can't get married now. I gripped the phone, casually saying, oh, I didn't say I'd agree to it either. I'm sorry. Cillian's voice was low. Can you wait? I had already hung up the phone. I knew deep down that there would never be any outcome between me and Cillian Witt. But why does my heart still ache even though I knew it long ago? A drop of water suddenly slid down my face. Initially just one drop, but slowly more followed. Where did the water come from? I lifted my head in confusion. It turned out a crack had appeared in the ceiling above me. This old house, whenever it rained, the water on the roof couldn't drain properly, slowly soaking and rotting the ceiling. Rainwater leaked down through the crack in the ceiling, landing right on my face. One day this crumbling house will collapse, I thought to myself. I moved the sofa and placed a basin to catch the leaking water. In fact, the house had been having various issues for a while, but Cillian had it repaired once before. After this project is completed, we will move to a bigger house, he asked as he lay beside me after the repair. Josie, what kind of house do you like? A big one, with floor-to-ceiling windows, preferably in the CBD center, overlooking the river. If he dared to ask, I dared to answer. In the corner of my eye, Cillian smiled. Since his family went bankrupt, Cillian had become serious, always wearing a poker face as if all emotions were suppressed beneath an iceberg. So when he smiled, it was like the iceberg melting, spring water rippling. I was immediately enchanted, feeling a rare sense of shame and dizziness. The house prices in the CBD center were over $10,000 per square meter. Was I being too greedy? It will happen. Cillian reached out and embraced me. Near my ear, his voice was soft but firm. Josie, just wait for me. The past beautiful moments were just illusions, and the present reality was, he was secretly engaged to Rachel. From the moment he chose Rachel, it was time for me and Cillian to end our relationship. I have decided to break up with Cillian Witt. On Valentine's Day, Cillian didn't come back as usual. I texted him, when are you free? I have something to tell you. Cillian still didn't reply. Just as I was about to call him, I received a call from Cillian's assistant. His assistant was a recent graduate student, very enthusiastic. On the phone, he excitedly told me that Cillian had prepared a gift for me and I must go to collect it. When I arrived, the assistant didn't present the gift. Instead, he drove me around for a while and stopped at the entrance of a residential area. The assistant gave me the key to one of the houses. The house was about 200 square meters. The morning light filtered through the glass windows, lazily filling the entire room. To the left of the French windows, the river was flowing slowly. To the right, you could almost overlook the entire city's CBD center. This is the gift prepared for you by Mr. Witt, the assistant said. I stood in the living room, completely stunned. Are you sure this is from Cillian Witt? I asked. The assistant smiled and said, Mr. Witt prepared this gift for you with great care. He didn't tell you to surprise you. Mr. Witt really likes you. After hearing that, a complex emotion welled up inside me. It felt like tiny insects were biting my heart. Suddenly, the door was pushed open with a click. Rachel Bailey was standing at the door. The assistant seemed shocked to see Rachel. Rachel asked, why are you here in my place? The assistant said, this is the house Mr. Witt prepared for Miss Pugh. Rachel sneered, picked up her phone, and sent a few messages. After a moment, a voice message played. I have given the house to Rachel. As for Josie, Cillian paused for a moment before continuing. I will compensate her with something else. Don't tell her about the house for now. The assistant stood awkwardly, glanced at me, his face turning red. He didn't have the heart to tell Cillian that not only did I know about it, but I was also standing here now. Rachel hung up the phone, sneered, and said, you all heard it clearly. This house is now mine. She looked at me, her smile gradually turning cold. Josie Pugh, you're just a stranger. Why are you still staying in my house? Get out. I glanced at her lightly, raised my foot, and walked out. But before I could take a few steps, Rachel grabbed my hand. She stared at the ring on my hand and said, this ring is actually here. It should be returned to its rightful owner. Then, she reached out to snatch it. I turned my head, grabbed Rachel's hand, and forcefully pushed her against the wall. Do you only know how to steal men and things? Now I realize that being compared to you is quite a failure. And wasn't it you who abandoned Cillian and went abroad in the first place? I had my reasons, Rachel said resentfully. I was terminally ill at the time, and Cillian went bankrupt. Besides lying to him about studying abroad, what else could I do? Let him watch me die? Josie Pugh, she sneered. You will never be able to compete with me. Whatever I want, he will never refuse me. So that's how it was. I was shocked, and my grip loosened. No wonder Cillian will marry her. It turned out that Rachel had to leave him because of her health back then. Rachel fell to the ground, coughed violently, then her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. I placed her on the sofa and told the assistant, "You don't need to tell Cillian about what happened today. Take her to the hospital. I'm leaving." I am indeed ready to leave, not only breaking up with Cillian, but I am also prepared to leave City A and develop in City S. I contacted a boss who recycles luxury goods, planning to sell all the things Cillian gave me. "This ring looks so new. Do you still want to sell it?" the boss asked. I nodded. After crazily sending out resumes for a week, I have already received several interview offers. After playing the substitute game with Cillian for a few years, I am a bit tired. Moreover, in my opinion, snatching a man with another woman is the most boring thing in life. Life is short, and I have more important things to do. So, I resigned from my job in City A, bought a ticket to City S, and started anew. However, I kept everything from Cillian during this process. It wasn't until everything was settled that Cillian finally called me back. "What's wrong? Are you free today?" I asked him. "I have something to tell you." Cillian said, "I also have something to tell you." I thought he was probably going to come clean with me too. Cillian sounded very relaxed, with a hint of a smile even. "So, wait for me at home tonight and don't wander around." Finally, we agreed to meet at my cheap rental house at 5 in the evening. My ticket was for 10 in the evening, but when the clock struck 7, Cillian hadn't arrived yet. I called him, but no one answered. I opened Rachel's Moments, and she had indeed posted a picture. In the picture, Rachel was blowing out candles on a cake. Cillian sat beside her, looking down at the cake with a distracted expression. When I was about to leave for good, he still chose to accompany Rachel Bailey. I didn't wait any longer, pushed my suitcase, and walked towards the direction of the airport alone. The endpoint of the ticket is City S, but my endpoint definitely does not only involve Cillian Witt. After getting off the plane, I took a nap at the hotel. The next day, I saw the news and learned that there was a small earthquake in City A last night. Other places were fine, but the suburb of my cheap rental house was relatively close to the source of the earthquake. In addition, the cheap rental house itself was in disrepair and had been completely collapsed by the earthquake. I was a bit scared and felt lucky for my choice. Fortunately, Cillian didn't go last night, and I didn't wait either. But I didn't expect to see Cillian on the live broadcast of the news. The collapsed ruins had been cordoned off by workers, and reporters were doing live broadcasts in front. Cillian suddenly ran into the camera and continued to run inside. "Are you crazy?" a worker shouted loudly, following him. "This is a dangerous building. There could be aftershocks at any time. Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Cillian was pushed to the point of almost falling to his knees. He covered his face and finally managed to speak with a broken voice using all his strength. "No, my girlfriend is still inside." The worker patiently pulled him out. "Rescue operations need to wait for professionals to arrive. You're lucky to save your own life." Cillian's eyes were red. He didn't listen to anyone at all. After shaking off a few workers with force, he continued to run inside without looking back. But soon, more workers surrounded him, pulling him out together. And in front of the TV, I was paralyzed on the hotel's big bed, holding the remote control. I was dumbfounded when I saw this scene. It seems like Cillian has some misunderstanding. City A. They all say that Cillian Witt seems to have gone crazy. He stays in the ruins every day, trying to find Josie Pugh's body. Even though his fingers are worn to the point of bleeding, they are only wrapped in thick white gauze. Yet he still stays in there without eating or drinking, single-mindedly wanting to find Josie. Until 3 days later, Cillian collapsed, completely exhausted in the ruins. "Don't go there anymore." When he woke up again, Rachel came to the ward to see him. "You won't be able to help by going there. You might as well wait for the rescue team's news." Cillian didn't say anything. He turned his head to look out the window. "In fact, it's already the 5th day. The hope of her still being alive is slim," Rachel said. "Cillian, death is normal. You have to learn to accept it." Cillian's eyelashes trembled slightly. The cheap rent housing was a shoddy project, and he knew it better than anyone. During the rainy season, rainwater would even drip from the corner of the bathroom, making a dripping sound. But at that time, they were really poor, with not many choices. Cillian secretly vowed that he would definitely buy a good house in the future and live with Josie. Later, Cillian did become wealthy and bought a house that Josie would definitely like. But he didn't give the house to her, instead letting her continue to live in the cheap rent house. He thought he could make Josie wait a little longer. The only thing he didn't expect was for Josie to have an accident. It was the 5th day that Josie was trapped underground. She couldn't possibly still be alive, but Cillian couldn't accept that she was dead. How could Josie die? If she died, then what was the point of enduring all this humiliation and hardship? Rachel was still saying something beside him, but he didn't listen, pointing to the door. "From now on, our agreement is terminated. Get out." I still didn't contact Cillian to clear up this misunderstanding. After all, a good ex should be as good as dead, never to appear again. And even though he is sad now, with Rachel's company, he will soon get over it. After all, they are still getting married. City S is a very inclusive city. Everyone has their own story, but they still live very decently. Even if the sky is falling, they would finish their afternoon tea first. And its high cost of living makes me work harder on every project. In less than 2 years, I have accumulated many clients in the industry, but work is still too tiring. So I have been looking for new opportunities in this industry to reduce retire early. Thanks to a client named Oded, this opportunity came not too late. He is a man, I am a woman, and not long after we met, I found out that we both like men, and good-looking men at that. So after we met, we started looking for young and good-looking men every day. Of course, not for anything else, but for work. In the advertising industry, in essence, it's about attracting clients to invest money and getting the audience to watch the ads they invest in. And now in the internet age, traditional media is declining, and self-media is emerging endlessly. As long as you have a unique selling point, anyone can become popular online. We sign those with potential, plan operations for their personal IPs. Then we act as intermediaries between them and the brand, extracting profits from it. Perhaps because of good judgment, the people I signed became very popular afterwards, with a strong ability to attract money, and each of them became a king in their own right. Although I still don't consider myself very diligent, thanks to them, in just a few years, the company has grown from a small scale of a dozen people to 200 to 300 people. At the same time, our company's market valuation has also reached nearly $2 billion. This means that I am financially free. At first, I had a surreal feeling, but as the company grew larger, more men started to approach me. For example, someone would follow me to my hotel room, only wearing a transparent bathrobe. For example, under the negotiation table, someone would touch my legs flirtatiously. For example, numerous seemingly casual, but actually cunning encounters. Some say that when men reach a certain level of power, they attract women who throw themselves at them. In reality, women are the same. Someone even inquired about my preferences, and sent a recent college graduate named Eric to me. He was said to be the most popular guy chosen by several schools. Initially, I had no thoughts about him, but when he lifted his head, he really resembled Cillian from high school. In a strange turn of events, I kept him as my assistant. In that moment, I seemed to understand the feelings Cillian had when he first saw me. When going out, I often let Eric drive for me. One day, Eric asked me if I had offended anyone. He mentioned that recently, a black car had been following me from a distance. After dropping me off at the entrance of the residential area, Eric suddenly said, "Boss, should I come to your house to protect you?" I was about to reply when a strange sound came from behind the flower bed not far away. We both turned our heads and saw a black cat leaping out of the flower bed. "It's nothing," I said. Upon entering the elevator, I noticed that the neighbor's unit across from mine, which had been empty for a while, had been renovated with red window decorations. The new neighbors must be a newlywed couple. Before falling asleep, a blurry image flashed through my mind. It was a long time ago when Cillian and I spent our first New Year in a low-rent apartment. He wrapped dumplings and sat alone by the window, quietly cutting out a paper decoration with the character for fortune. There should be some sense of ceremony during New Year. Cillian turned his face and said to me, "In the rundown house, with red paper decorations and the character for fortune on the glass window, it felt like a wedding night." Little did I expect that the person in my memories would appear in front of me the next day. It was Oded's arrangement. He had mentioned a few times that an investor wanted to join us. I happened to be free the next day, so I went. The investor was sitting by the window in the coffee shop, wearing a black coat with a string of Buddhist beads on his wrist, looking very impressive from afar. As I was about to approach, he turned his face. "Oh, it's Cillian Witt." "What? Why is it Cillian Witt?" Instinctively, I wanted to leave. "Josie," Cillian calmly called out to me, "what would you like to drink?" When I sat across from him, I noticed that Cillian had lost a lot of weight over the years we had been apart. "Are you sick?" I asked, my gaze fixed on his wrist. "Where did you buy these Buddhist beads? They look nice." Cillian didn't say anything, his thin eyelids drooping, with a hint of blush at the corners of his eyes. "A master gave them to me." I was somewhat surprised, and Cillian continued, "I spent 2 years as a monk in a temple." He looked up at me, his tone so calm it sent shivers down my spine. "Do you know why?" "How would I know?" Cillian turned to look out the window again. "You wouldn't want to know." He didn't say anything more, but instead talked to me about collaboration matters. Before parting ways, Cillian said, "I'll take you back." Eric had already walked in and waved at me from a distance. "No need," I said. "Someone is here to pick me up."